All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of The AI Way with Elliott Rayne. And we're here with all your questions that you've put in since the last episode. And basically, we're going to go through these for you and give you some value, all right? Welcome.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thanks. All right, let's get right into it. All right, Elliott. So why do so many people say that they want to have freedom, but then they build a business that traps them?
So I think a lot of people, when they create their initial first business, like the thing that they think about is how do I make as much money as humanly possible? And so that when you think about it from someone who's just starting out to someone who's actually got like an experienced business that do it for purpose and understand how long these things take, those that build from a place of purpose, they end up in a position where they build foundations, and foundations give you the ability to buy time back in your day-to-day operations, whether it's, managing the actual business itself or just managing your personal time with your family. So what I find is with a lot of people, whether it's coming out of school or, moving to college, university, like there's this ideology that everyone just starts a business and starts to get rich, which is so far from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 3 years of just complete pain before I made any sort of real money, right? And there's all this, status. Everyone wants the fast cars. Everyone's put the objective of having a goal of like, I want to make $100,000 or $200,000. When really, if you're looking at the macro, you can make much more than $100,000 or $200,000 over a millennium, right, or a long amount of time. So the reason why people build businesses that trap them is simply because they focus too much on the end result of making money. Mm-hmm. And so when you drive forward to something that doesn't create purpose, then you end up in a position where you put pressure on making money instead of how do I create something that's actually going to give me freedom. Mm-hmm. So freedom to walk the dog, freedom to go away with my family, because you'd be surprised how many founders just only focus on that, and it just kills them.
Yeah, I've asked a lot of people, why do you do what you do? And it's like a lot of the time, most of the time is superficial. So I think that's really the differentiator is if it's more values based, then the likelihood that you're going to actually reach your goals is a whole higher, and I think people need to unlearn a lot of the stuff because, bad advice is a dime a dozen, right? But then the good advice is underneath the noise. And so you have to go through that process of learning to distinguish what's actually good advice and not. And online on social media these days, like, everything's about the fast car.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's what sells, right?
Yes.
It's hard because I don't blame the people who sell things that put the fast cars because it gets a higher conversion.
Yeah.
But I think there's a worldwide knowledge shift that needs to happen in terms of people building from a place of purpose instead of a place of financial freedom.
So what if working harder is just another form of procrastination?
So I attribute all my hours at the desk back to what is this going to increase in the business? Is it going to increase the amount of money we're making? Or is it going to decrease the amount of money we're spending, right? And so the reason why people, like there's this work hard, brute force kind of like movement is because a lot of people like to look online like they work very hard, but really deep down in their mind, if you were to put a business in front of them that generated the same amount of money that they was generating or even more, where they worked a lot less, they would 100% of the time take that business. So I think this culture of like everyone should just get up at 5 a.m. and take 100 pills and run around in the street and whatever.
Isn't that what you do?
Well, that's what, of course. That's why I'm here at 10 p.m. in the night, However, for me, it's the culture of people just saying work hard. Like I do understand that because I think hard work negates the need for luck. And there is also an equation to luck, which I've covered before in the past. But like, I also think it's not about working hard. It's about understanding which are the smart levers you need to pull in your business. And I think mainly that comes from understanding who my mentor should be that tells me the levers I should pull, but also just calm creates the ability to see through trees and see through the forest. And so every time I feel myself like I'm just brunt working hard, I always have to sit back and I always see the clear thing, and it's always so much many hours less than I previously thought it was going to be to solve it, because business is a very simple game. Get a good product, get customers, right? And retain those customers. And so if everyone that made money, if the amount of hours that they put in versus the amount that they made, then equal the amount that they made, then pretty much every entrepreneur that worked hard would be worth the same. So there's an equation to leverage and working smarter, which is the amount you've put in versus the amount you get out. And that's building systems and using AI and, using all these other systems that are out there to help us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. It was pretty good. All right, Elliott, what's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is getting to the end of my my end of my life. My biggest fear is getting to the end of my life, basically. Full stop. Anyway, but like I've had this really big undenying fear for my entire life of not being enough, and so I always push forward to the next thing with this underlying insecurity that I'm not enough. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that, which is what pushes us forward. But my biggest fear above that is if I get to the end of my journey and what is this all for? Like, I've been pushing forward for this to, am I enough? And then I get to the end of it and I'm like, have I done the right thing? Should I have worked less? And I think there's many dying death wishes that people have. And I think everyone's going to always have a dying death wish. So I have to try and tell myself, like, what you're doing is for the greater good of yourself and your family. And so I just keep going, no matter whether I feel like this sense that I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough. I just keep going and doing everything in an honest fashion that I possibly can. And that's what tells me that, yes, that's a fear. That's my fear, is the end game. But I'm trying to mitigate the ability, the end game of that being an actual regret.
Well, I mean, the matter of the fact is that you're thinking about it a lot, which will lead you to having the result you want. Because if you're not even aware of it, then that's the problem right there. I mean, you'll get to the end and you'll be like, oh, I should have thought about this. Right?
And I always advocate to everybody, like, you should have conversations with your past and future self. So things that we take for granted right now, which could be getting out of bed or going to the shop and getting some Cheetos or whatever. Like, these are things that when you're 90-year-old and you can't get down the stairs and you've got a stair lift, we would wish we had. So I also measure the fact that I'm also feeling that everything I'm doing is attributing to a better me, but I'm also trying to remain grateful for the things that I have in life right now, like being able to go to the shop and buy things and, drive a car and whatever, go to the gym, because at one point we all die in the same place, whether it's a furnace or a coffin, right? So I think it's like, we must be grateful for that as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Gratitude is very important. All right, so is money the goal, or is it just a mirror?
I think there's an equation to money and that creates a mirror. And I think if you understand how money works and how it flows from people to people, then you can understand why so many people do see it as a mirror. Okay, what I mean by that is if people have money, if people are in the pursuit of money, then that can they can be a mirror of like what society should be and should look like. However, when you actually have money, you realize that actually there's so much more to life than just getting more millions, So I think that to those that don't have money, of course, it sounds really nice to be able to do whatever you want whenever you want. But I also think like it depends on your position as well, right? Because if you have, and I've spoke about this before, if you have $1,000 to your name and you make $10,000 that month, then the cataclysmic impact that has on your life is so much more than a multimillionaire making an extra $1 million that month, because the change is so great. But I believe that as you make more money, it can become a mirror, because the value of money decreases and it can go into your mind and you think, I'm never going to run out. Like, I'm always going to have money. But the moment that more risk comes and you lose that, this is when, people become like lose money, lose everything overnight, right?
Yeah.
Because it can become this like complete blindness to society. So I think, yes, it's all about the emotional intelligence throughout the having more money, because if you have nothing and you get a lot immediately, which is why you see people who win the lottery, they just lose all this money. It can just blind them so much. But like, I sincerely believe every single person that has no money, that needs to build it and can build an empire, should go through all of the challenges of losing, gaining, making, because, you know, it goes down to the old tale. If you teach a fish, if you just give a fisherman, like, you know, a boat, then what's he going to do? But if you give him a fishing rod and teach him how to, you know, how to fish, then he's going to be able to do that forever, right? And so, like, it's all well and good me as a fisherman having like an amazing boat, but if I don't know how to do anything, then I can't be self-sufficient. But if I just get money given to me, then I'm not going to be able to do anything. So I think it's so important that anyone who creates money has to go through the trials and tribulations of making more, of making it and losing it.
It's like, there's this thing called rags to riches, which is a very popular, like, way of kind of showing that whole hero's journey.
Yeah.
And it's the aspirational story as well. But I actually think it's riches to rags to riches, because you won't, and you know, right? We've seen many people who have become wealthy, and all of a sudden they have a huge ego. All of a sudden they're like, they're the biggest personality in the room. And you can't be like that and expect to be consistently growing.
Yeah.
So you got to lose that and go through what you just said. It's riches to rags to riches. I always thought that was a... Why do entrepreneurs glorify pain?
I think there's a lot of answers to this question. So I'll answer this backwards. So in order to be successful, I believe anyway, you have to, in every sense of the word, go through some kind of pain. Physical, emotional, whatever, right? And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, before they've been through that pain, glorify the come up. But when you're really on the come up, this is when, you know, the most successful people I know, like, they've been sat in a room at 2 a.m., everything's going wrong. They haven't just done that for like 2 weeks and then shown everyone. They've done that for like 5 years, 6 years, and nothing is going for them. So the reason I think why entrepreneurs glorify this is because they're actually not living it. They just got this facade about how it should be. But if we understand that to go through pain, it's just a part of the entrepreneurship process, then we can really have someone with us in the times of pain. You know, if I literally had someone in my mind with me, which I did, which was like, you know, God and someone helping and guiding me through when I was in my apartment and the floor was like, I was down to my last bills and the floor was like curling up. I needed to change the carpet. Like, if I understood the equation of going through pain at that point, then I would have felt like I had someone with me. So I think it's not about how do entrepreneurs and should they, because I don't think they should glorify pain. I don't think they should at all glorify pain. However, I think that if it should be taught that how pain can be mitigated and navigated and understood that it will happen. Because if we go through pain and we talk to everyone about how much pain we're in, then are we really in pain? I don't think so. And I don't think everyone has to go through pain to be successful. But I think with anything, even the things you enjoy in life, you start off by enjoying them. And the more times you do them, the more you start to dislike them.
Yeah.
And then there's times come where you think, I'm so glad I did that. But I think that entrepreneurs simply glorify pain because they're not going through it themselves and they're just trying to make some kind of sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. What if success is less about speed and more about stamina?
Yeah, it goes back to this old story about like the tortoise and the hare. Like, I meet so many entrepreneurs, like especially my age, younger entrepreneurs, that just get so like obsessed with moving really fast. And I believe the way in which we can move fast is when we understand and we know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the quickest way to burnout is two things. The first thing is speed. The second thing is not understanding what you're doing. That equation makes burnout, right? You can move fast if you know exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the longer term spectrum, if you want to have stamina, I believe that you have to go through stamina and understand what you're doing, because stamina builds understanding, repetition builds understanding. If I just go into something like moving at the speed of light, I'm going to end up in a position where I miss things.
Yeah.
But if I am very slow with it and I build up stamina and I get my badges throughout, then I can go with speed. But the problem is a lot of people, they move with speed before they've had their checkered stripes to say you've got the stamina. And so every time I think about someone ultra successful that has kept wealth over a complete like amount of time, it is literally they've built up stamina that's allowed them to move fast through doing the reps and doing the work that is ultimately required of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think stamina is so much more important for speed than speed, because you physically cannot have speed without stamina.
Mm-hmm. It's like an analogy is when you put the videos that you listen to or watch on 1.5 speed. But I've noticed that when I do that, it's very hard for me to retain what I'm listening to because I'm probably doing something else at the same time as well, which is probably not a good idea. But like, yeah, I mean, you're listening to it faster, but you're not remembering it. So what's the point?
Yeah.
That's basically the same thing in an analogy. Why do people fear success more than failure?
I believe that 99% of the population fear failure more than success. And the reason why that is because they're scared of internal and external things, meaning that if you are someone who has other people watching every move that you do, then that's an external thing. When people say they laugh at you, ridicule, or whatever, right? And then an internal thing is I don't want to fail here, right? And so I think 99% of the population are more scared of failure than success. However, those that are successful are more successful. Those that are successful are more scared of more success. Why? Because having more success equals more to lose. And if you think about taking away the last $1,000 from someone who has only $1,000, it's not going to impact their life. They're still going to probably struggle to pay rent or eat food. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you then work back on that and you work forward, if you work forward on that and you look at someone who's worth $50 million and they're very over leveraged, they've got debt here everywhere, they've got houses that they're paying off, they've got whatever, and they're massively over leveraged, the fall is so much bigger. It's so much bigger. Like, it scares me getting to 100 million. Why? Because if I wipe out $1 million from my bank, yeah, okay, that's all right. But if I wipe out like 100 million in one go, like, my life will completely change.
You know, I was listening to an interview with Elon Musk. I think it was a long time ago, actually. And he was talking about how he had gone through certain failures and he was down to his last $35 million. And the comment section was crazy. Like, people were like, what are you talking about? $35 million? You know what I would do with $35 million? But it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, he was scared because he had billions before, and now he's down to 35 million. That's a big leap.
And you know what he did? He split 17.5 to SpaceX, 17.5 to Tesla.
Right.
He said I was going to go all in on one, but I ended up going on both of them. So yeah, I know that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, when you go through each of your levels, the higher level you get, the bigger snake you go down on the snakes and ladder board. Mm-hmm. And I believe that that's the reason why people that are in the top 1% are more scared of more success than they are with failing.
Yeah. Very good. Could you share a bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and what inspired you to create Rayne AI?
Yeah. So this is like quite a story. And like, I was a very troubled child, like, for many years, like undiagnosed ADHD until I was 17.
I still am. Trouble child.
And many challenges growing up. I had behavioral mentors, everything. I had to report to them every day. I didn't go to all the classes. You know, the only thing I really enjoyed was physical education. I looked like this ultra confident person, but really inside I kind of hated myself a lot and felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And so that came out of me in a ball of anger.
Mhm.
So that anger then translated into me, you know, having a horrible relationship at home with my family, which, you know, thank God I changed over time. And yeah, I basically was a child that didn't really do much at school, and so I had to take myself out of the classroom. I left school with not much, and then I was either on the road to prison or on the road to becoming a multimillionaire, and I had to choose the one that wasn't prison. And the crazy thing was that before I got diagnosed with ADHD was like I knew there was a way to make money. I just didn't know what it was. So I was looking at other people and the business teachers and thinking, you guys are teaching me business, but honestly, you're not making as much as I'm going to be able to make in a day when I'm older. This is what I said to myself. And so like I took myself away to Stoke College and ended up just enrolling in an open college, even though I hated the idea of a schooling system. I had no other option. Did ICT and telecommunications principles was the A level that I did. It's like a two-year course, which I ended up completing that in 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. So like that for me was like the cataclysmic like jump in my mind to say like, on one hand, you've got this very troubled boy who just can't listen to anybody, family, friends, school, whatever. But on the other hand, you've got someone who can compartmentalize an entire 2-year syllabus into 6 weeks. And so what I realized was you can do this, but on your terms. So I basically went out there and I just started like, what do you enjoy? Well, I've just absolutely killed like a tech thing. Yeah, a tech A level or 2 A levels. So I was just typing in Google, like the most millionaires in the world, what do they do? It's always tech, always like venture capital and private equity and stuff. And so I just started writing like $100,000 page essays every single day about technology. And
because you wanted to?
Because I wanted to.
You wanted to get there faster?
And it also kept my mind sane. Like at that point, I was just like, had nothing, nobody, no friends, no family at that point. Like
really?
I was just alone.
Interesting.
I took myself away and I was on my own. All I remember was like going, because it was like a blur in my life because I was so like detached from everything.
Yeah.
I was so angry. And I used to just like, there was on campus, like there was a pool. So I used to just swim there like 5 a.m. every morning. I'd be the first one like with my little rucksack in the gym complex. It opened at 5 and I used to know the lifeguard's name and be there at like 4:45 every morning, just stand in the freezing cold. And that was my idea of building discipline because I had none before it.
It's good.
Or at least I never found it. And so all that technology, like information that I picked up, I fell in love with blockchain and realized there was an opportunity to, like, when you're a 16-year-old child and you have no value to the world other than knowledge, the only thing you can do is start to try and give away that knowledge and try and see if it makes sense for people to pay for it. So I understood everything from a, not only just like a crypto blockchain level, but like a consensus mechanism, layer 1, how to build the data science behind a blockchain. I knew everything and I've retained that information. And what I started doing was basically productizing that knowledge into, initially what started out as like one-to-ones on Zoom. I'd just consult people. And then I created like 1,000 videos in the span of a few years of like all about blockchain, how to put it in your organization, how to, create wealth with blockchain, how to secure your company as such. And until 2020 of December, we I grew the company to a point where it had 5,000 members, like all spending like nearly upwards of like $5,000 a year. So you can imagine the multiple on that. So I had quite a big business for my age at 20-year-old. But like it was so unsystemized, it was a joke. Like everything was just not
You
running
hadn't
as a
gotten
tech.
to that
Yeah,
point in your
I didn't know.
journey yet.
I didn't know. It was just brute force how I
Yeah.
grew the business, you know? And so I learned everything that I could know about how to market a business, because Facebook ads were crushing it in them days. Still are now, but like they were really crushing it in them days. You could literally upload a photo of like a piece of paper and it'd work, yeah? And so I scaled really, really fast. And so it was actually a company in my building that acquired the business from me, not necessarily because of the structure of the business, but actually because of the IP I'd created. Like I'd literally created from the ground up, like 1,000 videos on this brand new technology that no one knew. And, you know, at the same time, like I was building wealth myself because I was still investing in all these new crypto projects, which I lost a lot of money on as well as it made a lot of money.
Right.
And yeah, so in December 2020, that's when I sold the business and lost all purpose. Just went on a massive tear for like, I moved to London, Mayfair. I was, yeah, and I was, I've said this before in the past, but like partying 6 days a week. You know, one weekend it was $35,000 down on bottles. You know, all it was girls, like no purpose, girls, booze. Honestly, like, and like I'd built up this pent up aggression towards everyone, and like including my family. And like it was almost like I just felt empty. And like I was going out with different people every single day of the week, but I still felt empty. I had no friends. Like it was just people
Trying
using.
to fill yourself up with something.
And like everyone was like, oh yeah, we'll go to Tuesday club with Elliott, you know, because he'll spend $3,000 in a night, $4,000 in a night, and we'll just bottles or whatever. And so
They loved you, didn't they?
yeah, they loved it. And this was me every night, 6 days a week, including some days Sunday night as well. And I lost all purpose, and I thought enough's enough. And I got someone, I went back to the same mentor, someone who called Carol, who diagnosed me with ADHD when I was 17. I said, Carol, what is wrong with me? Like, I've built a multi-million-dollar business, a 20-year-old. I've sold it, and now I like literally have lost my mind. I've got no purpose. And that's the time I realized I had to fix everything in my life. So I went back home, went back to Leeds, and I just bought a new car, and like it was a big Range Rover. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like at that point, I was whatever car I could get my hands on, I was in. But this was like the car I just got before I went to Leeds, and I just felt empty. And I just had this conversation with my mum and my mother, and she's like, Elliott, you know, we know everything you've done, and we know you can do it, and we believe in you. Like I just lost my shit and just like broke down there and then, because like it was almost like everything I'd built up until that point was built on this anger of proving other people wrong and proving to myself that I was someone else, or trying to. But all of it was driven by money. So how can I make more money? So I forgot everything in my life. I forgot how to love, forgot how to be, forgot how to feel, forgot how to, just everything. And from that day forward, I vowed I would build everything from love, and I would keep close my parents, my family, my friends close to me. And I've got like, you know, one or two friends that have been there since day one when I had nobody, and I've built friends over time that, you know, we would die for each other. And that is why I created Rayne AI. And it was not only because I had the technical understanding of how to build a tech company, but it was also the failures in my first business. You know, I run a multi-million-dollar organization with 7 people, and like it was a mess. And I would still do it now with 7 people, and I still do we have more staff because we're a bigger company now, but I would have so many more systems that make the people do more. And so that was the thing that inspired me to create Rayne AI. Obviously, that we focus in building enterprise AI solutions for startups right the way through to traditional businesses and corporates. So I already knew tech. I'm doing the same rodeo as I did in 2016 to 2020. It's just this time it's built from a place of strategy because I understand it, what I did wrong. But this time it's built from love. So I take care with things. I don't just brute force. I understand how to speak to people. When I take someone on, I take into account the feelings, which I never did before because it was driven by money. And I think that all of that comes down to faith and love in what I've in what I've learned in my life but want to achieve. And most of that came from having nobody. And so that's, like, in a nutshell, the deeper reason why Rayne AI exists. And I am scared. I'm scared because if I go on to sell Rayne AI, which, you know, I would like to think I won't, but if the number's big enough, no one will say no to it. However, I'm scared, like, what happens?
Go
what
back to
happens
London?
then? Yeah, what happens then? Do I become the troubled 20-year-old boy, like, that just lost his mind? So I have to learn a lot from that.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is, I was a terrible person when everything was about me. And then as soon as it shifted to other people as more important, because, you know, actually that's where the joy of life comes from, is just being of service to others. And that's what I've learned. And it's something that's echoed in the highest levels of personal development. And also, I mean, if you want to go down to it, it's in the Bible, right? It talks about, you know, you've got to be of service to other people. What did Jesus do when he came here? He was washing people's feet, you know? And so, it takes a certain kind of maturity, which is cool that you've talked about all that, because that's an incredible achievement to have at such a young age. Because, you know, you can look at people who are like 35, 40, and they still haven't figured it out. And they're still trying to get that self-satisfaction, but they're missing the entire point of life.
Yeah, and all these things, like, I'm thankful they've happened, thankful that was my path. There's so many things that if it didn't happen, I wouldn't know everything that I do today and have learned everything that I have. I've still got so much to learn. I'm still making mistakes all the time. But, like, if I died tomorrow, I would tell you I've lived a 70-year-old man's life. I'm 25. And there's so much more to offer. I've got so much more to give in this world, you know, and you're right. I listen to a lot of stuff, and the most successful and whole people give every single time.
Yeah.
And that is the common denominator. And I've learned that through brute force and challenges. And I think that's something everyone can take something
absolutely.
from.
You don't have to be a millionaire to give. In actual fact, it's perfectly fine. You just find something that you can. Maybe even it's just a nice word or two to someone who needs it, and that does so much for your soul. All right, where should someone start if they know nothing about AI?
So I'm a big advocate in doing before you fill information into you that it's just going to overwhelm you. So if I were to start with AI tomorrow, I would be going directly to ChatGPT and just typing stuff to it, just having a conversation, seeing how it works. You know, I wouldn't be going to Stanford and taking all the online courses on how to NLP, LLMs, like neural path, whatever, right? Like, when we're in the real world of building a business, yes, if you're building an enterprise organization, you need to understand this stuff, because mostly for security.
Right.
But if you're just having a basic use for AI of, like, how to design a trip, you can use AI, understand it. And then once you've done ChatGPT, you can move on to Claude. Then if you want to start to build a business and you understand different functions in your business, you can say, right, I need to have marketing copy. Well, I know ChatGPT is not very good, so I'm going to use Claude to do that. And then you can sort of, like, blossom from there. And, like, for me, I always advocate start at the ground zero, what's everyone using, and then move to something that's more specific to your use case. And then after that, we can start to go into the route of, like, creating AI agents and, you know, really go deep on it. But, you know, most people advocate just do a AI degree, and it's just not the route.
Yeah, it's not. And I can attest to that. It's really good. How can AI help reduce stress for entrepreneurs?
I think stress comes from not understanding what's going to happen next. I think if you're an entrepreneur, okay, so stress comes from not knowing what's going to happen next, and worry and guilt and anxiety is things of the past, I think, right? And I think you can be anxious of what's coming in the future, but I think if you are stressed, you are probably don't have an accurate understanding of what happened, what to do next, right? Or you've got all these things piling up and you don't have the right system to deal with that. And that's still a lack of understanding, right? So I don't think AI is going to be the thing that's going to solve your stress, okay, in terms of like having a conversation and just like, I'm feeling stressed, how do I solve it? And it'll tell you to deep breathe or whatever. I think that we need to start by thinking like fundamentally the knowledge is the first point to solving stress. Is like, what systems do I need to put in place using AI to stop me getting to the point where I've got an imbalance in my mind, which is creating this stress for me as a human? And that is where AI sits. It's like thinking ahead. You can even ask AI ahead of time, like, if I'm going to build this system, what should I take into account and what AI system should I build? That can be your first step. Then you build them. But most people do
You
this.
have to like load it with a bunch of info about your personal situation, right? I mean, yeah,
of course. Yeah. And I think everyone should do that. Like, you know, I mean, not necessarily everything, but like, I think that if you are creating a system or you're creating a business, most people only act when it's like a really pressing thing. But that's already too late because you've already got all the papers piling up on your desk and you're already stressed.
Yeah.
But it's all about thinking and forward thinking as a human. How can we use AI in order to protect and prevent before it gets to the point of like no return? And I think that's where AI can eradicate certain areas of stress. But I think a broken mainframe or a broken person is always going to find a way to be stressed, and AI will not solve that. So I think if you are always stressed, even if you use AI, then you should really consider other therapeutic routes.
It's not the medicine necessarily. How do I use AI without losing my personal touch?
So I have this theory called AI templating. So if I'm going out and creating my own template of AI, if I'm a domain expert in a certain area and I know what good looks like, then that's my personal touch. Yeah. So if I'm an expert in video editing, let's say for example, and I use AI to help me edit videos and it produces something really bad, I know it's really bad. But if I'm a video editor, that's all I know, and I go then to ChatGPT and I say, hey, write me a sales page, my understanding of what that sales page is going to give me is going to be very different to what my understanding of someone who understands how to deal with videos. So this method of AI templating that I absolutely adore is where we go to places like Fiverr.com where there are geniuses in certain areas and we pay them for what good looks like, right? Or if you don't have any money, you can simply just find someone and just ask them for advice. But if I want to write a good landing page, say if I know nothing about it, I'll go to Fiverr.com, I'll spend $200 and I'll pay an expert and I'll feed that into AI and I'll say, this is what good looks like. Produce me something that follows this same framework.
Right.
And I would, while we don't have to have a finger on the pulse in every area of our business, it's our fault if we just use AI and we just accept it at the first base and we just put it in and think, oh, that's great.
That's really, really fast.
It's a really bad thing. So I recommend you don't need to have a personal touch in everything, but use your brain to go out to experts, leverage their success and help their success help you to understand it a little bit, which can be your personal touch in all the areas.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's my theory of like AI template. And I go out, I say, hey, can I have a landing page, spend $200, feed that into AI, and then use that as a template. And every function in the business, I will do that. And that teaches AI what good is.
I get the idea behind paying an actual real life expert today to do it, which a lot of people might not be able to do. So my question is, would you easily be able to, I mean, would it render similar results if you were like, hey, what are the top 10 landing pages, or copy, case studies, and just model it on those as well?
For me, I think asking the direct question for things that are business critical is always, it can give you background, but I don't think it can give you what you need.
Right. So it's very specific to your situation when you pay an
Correct.
expert to come in and tell you.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So there you go. That's the distinction there.
But if you have no money, then you should do outreach and find experts that will give you a little bit of time for free in return for a testimonial or something like that. Just to ask them a question. I won't have a one-to-one, or say to them, look, like, I'm looking to build a landing page, and I'm going to be building a landing page once I got my first few customers. So do you mind giving me a bit of feedback on what I can do to make my first landing page really well? Or put a poll on Instagram or something like that, right? I think there's all these different ways where humans will outsource their entire brain to AI, and it's just a massive failure.
Yeah. Yeah. How does AI help with decision making?
So I don't think AI will ever be the ability for making decision based on context, right? It'll give us decisions for if we've already given it the context. So if I have a business process and I want to use AI and I want to say, hey, send this email at this time, or respond at this way to in a personalized way to this way, or update this sheet, absolutely fine, because I've given it context, I've given it a tool and told it what to do. However, decision making comes from within. It comes from our own personal experiences, and it's all contextual. So I've given an example before. If I say to somebody, what's the best way to get to the end of the street without a car, and the quickest, they'll tell me to run. But if I broke my leg yesterday, there's no context to AI that happened. So this is an example of where AI is giving me the mechanism, but it has no context. And that's scary when you think about that, because AI is not watching us, I hope. It probably is somewhere. We've got cameras all around this room. I don't know who's
it's all
listening.
linked into ChatGPT right now.
Exactly. And like, when you think about context, that's what it is, right? So I think it can aid decision making. I don't think it will ever replace decision making.
All right. What's the real benefit of AI for entrepreneurs?
Speed. In every sense of the word, speed. Why? Because I can go into my brand new startup and use AI, and corporates cannot. They can use AI, but the reason why corporates acquire smaller businesses is because they move fast. So I can try 4 or 5 different voice AI solutions, or 4 or 5 different customer service AI solutions, or 4 or 5 different landing page builders, or whatever. And I can fail a million times, right? Whereas corporates are single-handedly responsible for the regulatory frameworks of an industry, okay? And so the little entrepreneur, or the $1 million or $10 million entrepreneur, they can, as a leader, walk in the room one day and say, we'll go in this direction. But a corporate cannot do that, because you have redundancies, you have the regulatory framework, they have the board, you have all these other things. And so that gives us the opportunity to not only test new products that are probably cheaper than what these guys are spending in corporates, which, by the way, there is a caveat to that, because corporates are probably doing volume, which means they get a better wholesale rate, which means that margins may be higher in that case. However, if a corporate is not, like, single-handedly not able to implement a voice AI agent or an IVR system into their company in less than a year, that means they have to pay an entire call center on however many thousands a month on salary, which eats into their bottom line and it eats into their margins, which is something that an entrepreneur doesn't need to do. So they get higher margins as a result for implementing that same AI system that corporates cannot, and they can do it with speed and intensity, which is why you hear these stories of entrepreneurs building businesses that go to $100 million in revenue in a couple of years, and they're acquired for like 7x multiple. Because the value of the test case is there and they've got product market fit. So this is the number one, for me, thing that just sets entrepreneurs on their journey with AI.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I've never thought about that before, but that's pretty cool. If you had to sum it up, why should someone start using AI today?
I mean, simply, if you don't start using AI today, you will be left behind. Like, this sounds really cliche and bad, but like, the average human right now cannot compute at the same speed, like even a millisecond of the same speed as what AI can. And so that's not an excuse to outsource your brain, because I believe that.
Will you take a chip?
No. That's not an excuse to outsource your brain or take a chip.
Yeah.
But what it is it will just extend your genius. If you're stupid, it will make you even stupider. I promise you that. If you're genius, it will make 1,000 more minions of Elliott as a genius, which I hope I am.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I look at it like that. It's like, if you don't, there is someone else who is more smart than you and smarter than you that will just make 1,000 or however many of themselves and become absolutely massive. And so if you don't, like, the competition is just far too high. It's like running a 100-meter race next to someone that's got a rocket attached to the back. Like,
Yeah.
you can run as a human, or you can run a race next to someone who has the ability to have a rocket behind them.
Would you say it's like a similar story as the calculator? Like, if you didn't use a calculator when they came out, like in 5 years, you'd be like, they would have done so much more. In just one way of thinking about it.
And when you think about it, I love that. Why? Because, like, unless your function or your end goal is to sit there and have a very quick mind for mental maths that's how my brain works, in a mathematics quiz.
Yeah.
Like, what purpose in life do we have to do mental maths?
Yeah. Well, why would you need to do whatever AI can do for you?
Correct.
And if you need to do it, then do it. But if you don't, then use it.
If I can do my times tables, that's enough, right? If I need to do anything complex, then I can use calculator. And so it's all about leverage. Like, if I'm one of the smartest people in the world and I can do every sum mathematically within 5 seconds, that's going to help me, because I don't even have to then press the calculator. But the bottom line is 99.999% recurring of people are not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to lean into leverage, and AI is leverage. Calculators are leverage. Everything around having tools is leverage to make us better.
Yeah.
And the person who uses leverage, the person who is a C student that uses leverage, is going to go up Mount Everest and quicker 100x than the person who is an A-star student who takes every fine detail and doesn't use AI. I promise you that.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point, which is the strategy behind the use of AI is what determines everything. Because if you're, like you said, like, if you're not particularly bright, then you're just going to be multiplied, not particularly bright. And I would probably think that most people who are watching this podcast to this point are bright enough to understand that concept. So, I don't know the best way to use AI. I think that's why you're here, right? So yeah, that's a very important thing to think about. How does someone build discipline when they're naturally inconsistent?
Discipline comes through doing. In every sense of the word, reps will make you better. And I think volume will negate the need for fear or the need to make something perfect. So I think if you just do something more, you will build discipline. But most people just spend all day just trying to build this absolutely perfect thing, this imaginary thing. And there was like a test, I don't know whether I heard it, but like someone got like, or like it was in a school. I don't know where I heard this, but like in a school, they tasked two classes. The first one, it was like to build like some, let's just say, some product, yeah? And this product was a very simple product. Let's just say like a manual toothbrush, right? Let's just say a manual toothbrush is the product. One class was given the idea of make the world's best toothbrush, right? Like manual toothbrush. And the other one was just make as many as humanly possible, okay? At the end of the experiment, the guys that made the volume ended up making the better toothbrush
Mm.
than the guys that spend all the time trying to make the perfect one. And that in
Okay.
the discipline equation is very important. Why? Because if you don't do the reps and you spend all your time trying to make something perfect,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have enough experience to make the
Not
perfect
enough
product.
data.
Not enough data.
Yeah.
So these guys that spent all this time creating the perfect toothbrush lost because those that just did the reps knew what made a good toothbrush.
It's like conversion optimization, right?
Exactly.
You just don't know what's going to work until you test it to a certain degree.
And it's nuts. I've made thousands of funnels and I know exactly what converts. But I can whip up a funnel in 10 minutes that will convert better than one that, literally took me weeks. And that's not necessarily to say that, that's lucky, because it kind of is at the same time, right? But like the volume just gives me data.
Yeah.
It's like I've made 2 funnels instead of 1.
I remember tests we did, and this is besides the point, but like, I mean, you test an awful looking landing page. Sometimes it converts a lot higher.
Correct.
You wouldn't know that if you didn't try it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. What's one mindset that changed everything for you?
Building from a place of love and giving and making sure that I was taking care of other people before myself. And so actually, by the way, that what I've just said is actually kind of backwards. Why? Because I had to take care of myself first before I was able to take care of other people. Okay. So I got Elliott right, and I learned how to build from a place of love. And then that allowed me to treat everyone else with love. That allowed me to stop putting my mother through pain, putting my father and brothers through pain. And it allowed me to become a better son and a better business owner and a better boss. And so that was the biggest shift in my entire life, was learning that you don't have to do this for the dollar signs, and you don't have to do this to prove anyone wrong, but you can do this from a place of love and everything will flow better.
How do you stay creative without feeling overwhelmed from your own ideas?
Yep. So I think every visionary needs a operator to succeed. So what I mean by that is, if you have a tech company, you have someone who drives the company forward where we're going as innovation, and then you have someone who builds the actual computers or the technology. Yeah. So I think the first step is understanding which of those two you fit within. And if you don't have a partner that does that, then you have to hire very quickly a number 2 that does the opposite complementing skill. So if you're a creative, then you can then laser your attention on AI for creatives. And if you're a techie, then you can then laser your mind for AI for technology. So I think creativity is... The barometer I measure creativity is only upon one's usage of it, because my idea of creativity right now is creating a business that is fully automated, and someone else's might be creating a business that it looks amazing online, right? 2 different ideas of creativity. Someone creating the motherboard in an iPhone is creativity, but to someone else it's death.
Sure. Code is creative.
Correct. So I think it's upon one's usage of whatever their skill set or their interest is what allows them to stop procrastination in when they're creating their future. And so that's what I believe creativity is, and how we stop procrastinating.
Nice. How do you define success now, having had ADHD and all this wealth?
Like, I was in a place of pain for a long time in my mind, and it was all building from the wrong place. And so what I realized over the years is, like, success is not about not only the material things. I learned that very, like, the start, it was all about material. Then I built everything, didn't care about material, and then it all became about material again. When I sold the company, like, so right now the only thing I put, like, my time and my energy into in terms of how do I define my own success and, like, want my success to be is, like, how healthy am I? How much money am I making that means that I can take care of myself and my family, my dog? And then how are my relationships with other people? And so status doesn't even come into that anymore, really. It's health, wealth, relationships. These are the things. And so that's how I define success. And I think one cannot honestly, in some cases, coexist without the other. Now, in a lot of cases, you can coexist relationships without wealth. That can happen. However, I believe that if you want to optimize, for example, the best health, it helps having money.
Money, right? Yeah.
And if you want to have an amazing relationship where you can have a lot of experiences and see the world and create things that weren't available without wealth, I think that is something that should exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these things all coexisting in a way that's not having an imbalance of one over the other is what creates success. Because when you have too much money and no time, you start to neglect either health or relationships or both of them. So I think it's about having a balance between the two and knowing, okay, well, I'm pushing hard on my wealth lever here.
Mm-hmm.
I should really start pushing hard on my health or my relationship lever. I should have more time with my kids, more time with my family. And so once you understand that and you start thinking about this as a bucket, then you can start to align your time and look at your buckets as like, have I got 90% of my water in this one bucket and 5% in the others, the other two?
Yeah.
And so this is how I look at it. And as long as I have kind of a balanced approach to all of them, I don't think they're ever all going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's what defines success for me.
Nice. I mean, it's a stubborn lesson to learn for a lot of people, you know, like it's your whole outlook on life needs to be about having the values that drive that balance. Yeah. So yeah, that is a challenge in itself. So when you were building Rayne AI, what were the strategic things, the foundations that you put in place in order to make it work?
Yeah. So I look at every business as 3 core functions. The first one is product, and product is like the thing that sits at the top. Yeah. Then you have marketing. Yeah. So your marketing is, of course, how you get people to know about your products. Okay. Then you have your like operations. Okay. And then you have your finance, your money side of the business, right? These are the main 3 things I look at in the business. Okay. So the thing that I focused on first with Rayne AI was product, making sure I not only knew how to build the business, but also how to educate staff to make sure we had the best product possible, not only for our done for you, but also our, do it yourself, done with you AI programs that we have.
Right.
So we focused on product. And then the other levers out of those 3 things that I pull, you can forget finance for now, because in order to have finance, you have to have operations and marketing and cash coming in, right?
Chicken and the egg, right?
Yes. So I then focused on the next thing, which was the 4 ways to make money in your business: outreach and cold and warm outreach, paid ads, and content. And I just drove as much human or possible traffic into those things. And then I started looking at, once you build a foundation of a business, things break. So then you solve one problem, which is marketing and money coming in the door, and you move into operations. So this is when the operations, and we started building more AI systems into our business. So these were all the levers that I pulled in the business. And the more that we grow our business, as we get to the $100 million revenue, which we want to do very, very soon, I just do more volume of all those things, whether it's making more levers in operations with AI, or whether it's doing more content or spending more money on paid ads or doing more outreach. Okay. And then finance is like the overarching thing, right? And of course, customer service, which comes under product. In my honest opinion, customer service comes under product. A lot of people disagree, but I think it does. So that's my thought. That's what those are the things that I did in order to build Rayne AI. And honestly, the next step for us is just doing more of it. It's just doing higher volume and testing more angles and just going from there.
Nice. Many founders confuse strategy with goals. What is the real meaning of strategy?
Strategy is taking a step back. Like, I see far too many people without a strategy move into brute force. Like, how do I push this thing as quick as possible to work? And while that works sometimes, you will do so much more damage trying to just brute force your way to success, either internally or externally, to your business or to yourself, than just either paying a mentor to tell you the strategy or learning the strategy yourself. And so this was the cataclysmic shift I had when I started, was like, Elliot, you can learn every facet of business in order to like do copywriting for your website and build everything, right? You know, I know technology, but I don't code anymore, right? And so in the early days, I was coding everything, and then I had to become a business owner and not employee to my own business. And so as a result, I started looking at business like, I need to be smart here, and I need to buy time and buy strategy from other people. And I think one of the fundamental, most important things you can do in business is have the right strategy. Because if you're pushing the plane in the wrong direction, it's always going to fail. It's always going to go the wrong way. So strategy is fundamentally, alongside, in my opinion, emotional intelligence, which I work a lot on. Because if you don't look after your own strategy, your business strategy is not going to follow, because your business is a reflection of you. Your business is a reflection of your mindset, of the way you look after this engine, which is your body, which took me a long time to realize. And so the strategy for yourself, but then the strategy for your business is paramount.
Nice. When planning for growth, how do you identify where leverage lives in your business?
Yeah. So it all comes down to a problem and a solution. So if I plan for anything, it's like, how can I be proactive, not reactive in my business? And so the most important thing that founders miss when it comes to strategy and building out their business is, how do I create a automated system that takes into account the potential risks before it happens, right? And so when I build out any form of business, I will always map out what the AI process looks like, but only after I've understood what the human process looks like. So anyone going through this, it's like, hey, start with humans, then go to AI. Don't just like reactively think I'm just going to do AI, because you can't AI your way to a broken process to scale it, or out of a broken process. You shouldn't AI your way out of a broken process.
Right.
You should always have strategy. Build your AI after you've already done it from a human level. It counts with everything. It counts with, if you're running ads, you should always learn how to create your own ad creatives, create your own ad videos, and run your ad before you start throwing hundreds of creatives at it every single week. You know, because fundamental knowledge is more important.
Yeah, I think that's the recurring theme in our conversations, is that it's not the end solution, but rather it's like a complementary helper.
Correct.
Okay. In what ways has data and AI helped you change high-level decision making?
So I like systems. I build systems, and I don't make decisions based off of AI, but I allow AI to deliver me data in order to make decisions. Okay. So what that means is, I don't just go to AI and ask it, hey, like, I'm having this problem inside my business. Like, how can I solve it? I might do, just to give me a little bit of data on like my perspective. But I've spoken in detail in the past about how every single Friday my team's reports are delivered to me on Notion, and I can look through everybody's performance, everybody's salaries, everybody's everything. And I can look through all of that, right? So that allows me to make decisions for the next week, or look at the previous data to forecast. And that's how intelligence and AI has allowed me to do that. I'm not automating that entire process by, you know, I'm sure I could do, but I'm still allowing the need for my own brain to work by it giving me the data I need, which previously would have taken me a long time to put together in a spreadsheet, but it's delivering it to me in a very simple format that I can then make strategic decisions based off that.
Every founder or entrepreneur has a ceiling where they can't push any further. And how do you determine where you're the bottleneck in your business?
Yeah. So I think it's different with everybody, but I believe that when you start becoming the bottleneck in your own business, you kind of know it, because it starts showing your health and your decision making. So like, what I find is, when I push forward to projects and I get towards the delivery point of it, or I get halfway through the point of it and I'm like, I don't know what to do now. Like, that's not me not knowing what I'm doing. That's me literally just saying my body's telling me to stop. So for me personally, I believe that the body will tell you if you know when there's a ceiling to where you should be stopping and just taking a break. But I think also as well, like, if you create your own like roadmap for growth in your business and there's certain things you haven't done before, then you're obviously going to have a skill gap, right? So that can also be the bottleneck in your operation. So I think two things. I think you can identify when you're the bottleneck and when you're running out of gas by your body. But then you also can identify if you really don't have a clue. If you take a step back and you don't have a clue what's going on, you still can't work it out. It's a skill issue. So that's how I think with every founder that's getting better consistently in their operations, they should always, always, always look at health and then look at the skill.
Nice. If 80% of results come from 20% of actions, how do you identify that 20% within Rayne AI?
So we, in short, very, very simply have everything automated in our business in a way where we can understand what metrics look like, what KPIs are, how much money we're making, how much is coming in, how much is going out. And so that allows me to not only make decisions, but it also tells me what's working. So I then can double down on that. And I think everybody that is building a business, it's far easier to build a business based off data, your own data, than it is based off nothing. And if you don't have any data, then you need to try your best to either get data or use other people's data to work out what will work. And the best way to do that is through mentors, is through webinars and things like that. And, you know, making sure that you're actually paying for good knowledge and not taking on too much knowledge. You know, choose 1 or 2 or 3 creators that you know are really dialed in and use their knowledge to your advantage. And I believe that's the key to it. I think in every sense.
Right. How do you balance long-term strategy with short-term systems?
So I build every single thing from what I like to call a penultimate goal, which is like before the end of the year, even though it's penultimate means before the end, which is like before the end of the year. So I do 3 big goals for the year, and these are called big rocks. There's a book on this. I can't remember which one it is, but anyway, I've read it. And you should just type in big rock book. I'm sure you'll find it. And every big rock should be broken down into small rocks, which is small objectives. And so as a result, if you understand what those small rocks are, you can then break down into a default diary. Okay. And that default diary makes up, how do I meet my short-term goals that I can then review, that then make up my long-term goals. And when ever since I learned that in corporate, by the way, in my first like ever corporate job, which was my first and last, I lasted a very short amount of time there, was like one of the only things I learned. Okay. But like, if you break down what is a mammoth task into smaller things, it's always going to be easier. That's the long and short of it.
Right. Nice. I was going to say it's not a geology book, but missed that opportunity. How do you use AI to create strategic advantage in markets that move faster than traditional?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I were to use AI in a very quick moving market like technology, of course, when you're using technology in the technology market, which is moving fast, you have to have your finger on the buzzer. But also what you got to also think about is technology most of the time is 9 times out of 10 reskinned. Like one technology comes out and then there's another 20 of the same technology that comes out that become competitors. So I think it's not about how do you create the best product, like to compete with the corporates, because you're not a funded VC giant, right? One in however many thousand companies do that. In an agile world where we're startups and we're smaller businesses, we can choose one of those proficiencies, use it, create subject matter experts in that, and use it to create and solve a problem, a specific problem, and we can sell. We don't need to create the next Google. Leave that until you've done 3 exits, if that's what you want to do, and you've got 100 million, 200 million in the bank, right? And you can afford to burn money for years and go and get outside capital and waste 6 months raising money and not have any coming in. However, as a small business and as an agile business, we don't need to spend our time like, trying to choose all of these solutions and just use them all. Choose one and test different ones. Yeah, of course. Like I might use GPT and I might use Claude and I might use whatever, but I'm not trying to create the next GPT or create the next Claude. I'm just using them to create a subject matter expert that I can then sell. And that's my thought process on that.
With AI evolving so quickly, which platforms do you think will survive the next 5 years, and which ones do you think will die?
Yeah, so I believe OpenAI will definitely survive. I'm very confident in that. Why? Because their go-to-market and penetration has been so good. Now, they are still, in a lot of areas, losing money, but they have some big backers, like the guys that control everything, compliance and everything. And they're also, their next go-to-market strategy is pretty genius. It's like, paying other companies to build on their infrastructure, which locks in infrastructure for the long term.
Yeah.
And once you build, you continue building, and it becomes irreplaceable, indispensable. So I think OpenAI will stay around. I do think that Anthropic will also stay around, but I think a lot of the other AI systems we're seeing as like coming out as that as gimmicks and copycats won't, unless they really differentiate in certain areas. And I think that there's two ways to look at that. The first one is like there'll be winners and the losers. There'll always will be in everything. But there's also like, how does a small company deal with that? It's like, we don't need to compete with them because them guys are like digging for the gold. We can just take facets of their inventions and solve smaller problems and get paid a lot of money for it. Because sometimes with scale, it's like, for example, I saw something the other day, and it's like when a company's selling something for like $3,000 a pop, and they're selling it through a landing page or through like a document or whatever, and they're just selling them like hotcakes, yeah? And then they start thinking, right, now I'm going to raise my prices to like $4,000 to $5,000, and I'm going to make loads more money. But in order to raise your prices to $4,000 or $5,000, you've got to hire a sales team, because no longer what was selling through a brochure, because it's a bigger financial commitment, has to be sold through a personalized experience. But by doing that, they have to then hire people, they have to then give salaries, they have to then give commissions. And they might as well just stay at point A, solving a smaller problem with a smaller price point, but making higher amounts of money. Right. So this is the way I look at AI right now, is there will be winners and losers, but like, we should not, unless we're a multi-exited founder, be trying to compete with the big guys. Just let them do the thing and focus on what makes us great, which is speed and agility and building great solutions for our customers.
Interesting. When something breaks in your company, what do you usually do? Fix the problem or start from scratch again? And how does AI help you do that?
I love that. So I've built our company in a way, and I think every founder should, because you can build a company as an ego founder where everything's put like massive and everything looks complex and no one understands it. But then if something goes wrong, you're either the only person that understands it, or you understand only certain areas of it, and it takes you weeks to like unpick the problem. Or you can build lean, and you can understand every single area of your process. So when I built Rayne AI, I built all the AI systems in a way that were very simple for me to understand, but for the customers and also our staff to understand, so that if I'm not there, someone else can fix it. But it also gives me the ability to have a handle on every single thing in the business. Everything. I understand it inside out. And it's not a case of if something goes wrong, I know immediately what's gone wrong, and I can fix it in 24 hours, or the team can fix it. I can say, that's what's gone wrong, guys, go and do it. If I built a huge system no one understood, I would say, give me 5 days to work out what's gone wrong. Then you guys, this is what's gone wrong. Then you guys spend another 2 weeks trying to work it out and rebuild it from scratch. So I always just start thinking as a founder, build things simple that you can manage every area of and scale them as high as they possibly can before they break, and you have to make them even better.
You talk a lot about growth, making it predictable. What kind of things do you use to forecast with scale and accuracy? What kind of metrics?
Yeah, so I look at the business in two methodologies when I built Rayne AI. The first thing was, how do we make growth predictable? Yeah. And then how do we make systems predictable? These are the two things that I focus on, or cost saving predictable. AI is only two things. How do we make more money with AI? How do we save more money with AI? So these are two things I focus on. Now, in order to make growth and marketing predictable, you have to understand your KPIs. So you have to understand how much you're willing to pay for a cost per lead, how much you're willing to pay for a cost per call, how much you're willing to pay for a customer, okay? And how much we're willing to spend on ads. And when you know those numbers, you're willing to spend a lot more money. And it's a very similar thing if you're doing cold outbound, right? If you're doing, for example, cold outreach on cold email. If I know for every 1,000 emails I send that I'm going to get one customer, then I can send 1,000,000 emails and get that.
Yeah.
So it's all a methodology. This is how I've created predictability in our business across all the marketing verticals. Only other than content, which we use as a middle of funnel and also an awareness mechanism. Like, I can't really measure that because we do volume, but we don't have like we're not celebrities in the game as such. So we can't measure it on that minute level. But however, when it comes to just doing reps, we can measure all of our growth that way. When it comes to systems, I measure my systems in the second way, which is how possibly high can we push the gas on this before it breaks? And I will always push the gas as hard as it possibly can before it gets to the point of breaking. So I'll try to break it before it gets to the point of breaking. So I know the capacity, and then we start building before the thing's broke the next thing, or we start building the upgrades. And that's how we've created predictability, not only for our back end, but also for our front end.
Nice. As a CEO, how do you balance execution with vision?
Yeah. So I think the common denominator amongst a lot of very successful people is the ability to take massive action, and over a sustained period of time, like a huge, long, like landscape. But I also believe that choosing the right lever is the most important thing of all, choosing the right product to sell or the right people to sell to. So there are certain things that you have to take into account as an entrepreneur, which is like the lever and the model I'm choosing. But it's also like, do I back myself to execute on this? I think if you start with the thing and the model you're using and the industry you're going into with that first, then you can have confidence that when you're executing on the right things. But throughout that process, you should always consider like resetting and having a visionary day, or some CPU time, as Bill Gates calls it.
CPU time?
Central processing unit time. So it's giving you yourself
your CPU.
Yeah,
right?
your
Okay,
CPU. It's giving yourself the amount of just time to reflect and relax. And so I think taking massive action is the number one, but I also think like having the time to rest and reflect is the second most important thing.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that leads to burnout, right? It's just
Correct.
not having that time. What's one example of a process that you used to manage manually, but now is automated, and how much of an impact has that had in your business?
So I used to manually measure all of our content metrics and all of our cold email metrics, and also manage all of our like staff reporting as well. These are like 3 systems, all so important: attribution and also the overall management of finance and staff. And I used to like take like 1 day a week at least on that.
Wow, yeah.
with a big like end of month review every month. And like now it takes me like 2 hours every week maximum. So that's an example of how I've used technology, using GPT, Zapier, Notion, all these other great tools that we've got, having a CRM in place that just delivers the data that I need onto my desk every Friday morning. I look at it, I make the decisions for the previous week and the future week, and I've saved myself a day a week, right? Which when you compound that is, like nearly a week every month, right?
It's nice. A lot of businesses break as they grow. What's your framework for making sure that you can scale without experiencing that problem?
Yeah. So the way that I build companies is understanding ahead of time when things can break, because everything breaks at some serious scale, whether it's tech or whether it's just fundamentals. So fundamentals are so important. Like it's the house of cards thing. If you have a very nice base, your cards will stay up, but if you build too high, they're still going to fall down anyway. So I think one thing that's like been attributed to our success in building technology is like we understand that building technology has a shelf life. And so as a result, like I wouldn't build the same technology for a startup as I would for an enterprise, because of security, and also because of the startup just doesn't need to have that amount of cost in their business. Yeah. So this is where like, okay, there's no one size fits all in building technology or in building foundations. But as long as you understand what the business use case and business need is, as well as where the business is in its life cycle, then you can build a pretty good solution, but also then forecast what's the next solution we need. It's not about just like building a solution and thinking it's going to work forever, because we all know the Blockbuster model where they just stopped. They could have bought Netflix and they never did. Right, and they just went out of business.
Yep.
We all know the BlackBerry model where they stopped innovating on the phones and iPhones took over.
Yep.
Like, I think it's not about building a system that's fit to last you forever. It's about building systems that can break and you know when they're going to break, but you forecast before they do break so you can make a transition.
Yeah. I think a lot of that also is just being at the top of the game and then just like being relaxed and not, With AI handling so much of the workload, what does a modern team look like to you?
Yeah. So we have this theory well, it's not a theory. It's actually just a business process in Rayne AI. Like every staff member that comes through Rayne AI, they have to be trained on AI, Rayne AI certified on AI.
Right.
And the way that I see organizations now is like, you can learn a skill inside out and be great at it, but you cannot compete at scale with the volume that AI can do. That's not to say that I could completely replace someone's genius with AI, but I can, as near as damn it, understand what they do and get a view with AI of how they do it over a period of sustained time and feed that into AI to get a near as damn it carbon copy and 1,000% more volume. So we got to think about that as humans. Why? Because if I am getting employed, for example, for 6 months, you don't know that in 6 months, all the data that employer has got on you has not been fed into AI and you're replaced.
Right.
So we need to become congruent with AI and the processes so that we already can forecast for that happening as humans. Why? Because if you forecast and you build AI into your process and you say, hey, I already am making myself 10x more powerful in this organization, it just mitigates the need for it mitigates the need for an employer to replace you with AI because you're already using it, and it also increases your the cost to replace you, the opportunity cost for keeping you versus replacing you. Whereas before, it was attractive to replace you because you had a high salary and they got all this data on you. Whereas now it's because you're doing so much more, the opportunity cost of replacing you is too high.
Much higher. How important is speed of execution today in scaling a business, and how does AI factor into that?
It's more important than ever.
Yeah.
I see 16-year-olds who are seeing winning products online right now in e-commerce, and the next day they've built a store and they're making sales. Like, I literally saw it the other day. Like, some guy saw a winning product like 5 a.m., like 2 a.m. in the morning. Next day, had the product live, and he was making $5,000 a day from it. So, like, what you got to take into account is like, I can tell everybody that's listening to this, speed is important. But if you don't take that and do something about it, you're always going to lose. Why? Because there's always going to be some 16-year-old who's going to do that.
Yeah.
And it's going to understand
and they can do that now, right? I mean, they
course.
couldn't really compete back in the day. They didn't have the resources.
Correct.
But now, like, it doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you understand how it works.
Correct. Like,
and they got more time than you.
They got more time, and also AI is trained on the best of the best.
Yeah.
While it's not going to provide the perfect each time, it has been trained on something that 16-year-olds can just
I guarantee most of the people that have created those AI avatar accounts at the beginning were like 16, 18-year-old people, right? Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, it's so important. And I think the key message is if you don't do it, that's okay, but someone else will.
Yeah. What tools or systems do you use to turn business data into strategy?
So I use just attribution charts. I take data from all my different systems, put them into a Google spreadsheet, read that data from a Google spreadsheet, and then put that into a very nice dashboard that I can see on a computer in my office. And then I read that every day or on a Friday, and I make decisions from it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a very quick answer, but like, anyone can do that. It's just about knowing the data points you need.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the same thing as trading a financial market. If you know the axes to look at of the price going up, then you can put that on a screen and read it. It's exactly the same thing in business, and that's what AI allows us to do without having to spend 48 hours crunching that data ourselves.
You often say the goal isn't just to get rich, but it's to be free or to stay free.
Yeah.
So how do you personally recommend building a strategy to ensure that outcome?
So you got to start with what you want in life. Do you want a freedom-based business or a 10 to 30 grand a month business? You know, there's a ceiling at, I think, $1 million a year, $2 million a year, I would say, before it becomes quite challenging to get to 10, and then you sort of hit freedom again. So, like, if you're looking for a freedom business, don't go above 2 million a year. You do whatever you want on 2 million a year. Yeah. But if you're looking to make real impact in business, then you got to go through pain to get from 2 to 10 and then go from there. So you got to know the game you're playing. That's number one. You got to know the game you're playing. What do you want? Like, do you want to create a small business and just live? Or do you want to create a business that's probably going to control you for a few years, and you got to learn every facet of it and learn so many things and fail and have a big mountain to climb that could just topple over? But then at the end of it, create generational wealth, which you're not going to have if you just create a $2 million business a year. Maybe you could at a level, but it only takes one generation to be stupid with it and it's gone, you know? So like it comes down to choosing the game you want to play. And also like for me, like I went through different periods in my life. You know, the one period it was just all about money. Then it were all about how do I build a business that I can travel and build at the same time, which was kind of when I first started Rayne AI. And then I made a decision, right? I want Rayne AI to impact more lives based on love than me just building it up to a few $1 million and then just traveling. So I made that conscious decision. You don't have to start with one thing in mind, and you can still change your mission, but know the game you're playing and stick to it until you decide if you want to change it. And so, but when you do change it, you know the change you're making, because there's chances you can't go back if you do make that change. You know, so if you're happy at $2 million business and you think I want just more and more, think about the changes you've got to make in your life, because if you have a lifestyle business and you're very happy with it, it's hard to get that in the first place. But if you decide I want to go to 10, then you can't go back to 2. There's too many challenges. You maybe could backscale, but honestly, like I'm a big firm believer in that $2 million business you had that you're thinking I've got to go to the next thing. Regardless whether you try and scale back in the future, you're never going to have that kind of freedom. You're always going to have some shit that's created along the way. Yeah. So that's it. Just know the game you're playing, build accordingly, and use AI to help you in whatever game you're playing.
Nice. 10 years from now, what do you think scaling a business will look like? And how can today's entrepreneurs prepare for that?
I think that we can do anything with technology right now, anything and everything. So I think that in 10 years from now, the roles, as I've spoke for in previous and in other days, like the role of the CEO will never change. It will always be about people, I believe, from now forward, because we can do everything with technology. But I think that in terms of an organization, all that's going to change over the next 10 years is like humans will become more in synchronization with robots and with technology. And more people there'll be a bigger divide in terms of rich and poor. There'll be no middle class, meaning that, you know, you have the new rich as such, which are those people that can either use technology really to a high skill advantage, like push forward to get their own advantage, or people that use technology and also are very, very good with people. Yeah, that's like the new rich. Yeah, there's no middle class here. Like not all the in the middle jobs, like pressing buttons, are just no more. They're just like you're going to be broke like for a long time with that. So I think that's the key for the next 10 years is how do you, depending on whether you're an employer, which is like a business, if you're a business owner, you should think about how do you bring your employees in more in synchronization with robots so that you can get the most out of them. And if you're an employee, then you should be thinking, how can I become more in synchronization with robots in my day-to-day delivery so that I then become indispensable in the business I work within? So 2 different strategies, same thing happening. It's just we've got to know the game we're playing in each of those strategies.
Nice. Wow, this has been an incredible episode. A lot of value shared here. If you have watched to this point, I recommend you watch it again, because there's just a lot of stuff there that will bring you a lot of value in your business and even in your personal development as well. So thank you very much for coming on again and going through those questions.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions that you want to ask Elliott, just leave them in the comments or get in touch, and then we'll include them in the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Ciao.